So I want to do a quick recap of the ISLM model and very quickly go through the whole model and see its implications in the short run and long run. And this is the very, very bare bones model. So as you recall, we have two components, two markets to the ISLM model. On the investment equals savings side, we have a condition that GDP, the value of all the goods and services produced in the economy, has to equal the sum of its components, consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. That's equivalent to investment being equal to savings, because savings is GDP minus consumption minus government spending minus net exports. So that's where we get this investment equals savings. You'll recall that from earlier chapters. Now the consumption function we typically have depending on GDP, so that's the consumption function, and we have a net exports function here where imports increase when GDP goes up. Exports for now exogenous to the process. So we bring all the y terms over to the other side, change their signs, we factor them out, and we divide by that factor, and we get this term 1 over 1 minus b plus m, which in this case is the exogenous spending multiplier. And then we have our exogenous variables over here. Autonomous consumption, autonomous investment, government spending, and exports, which we are assuming are exogenous. That's the IS side of the model. Then we have the money side of the model. Liquidity equals money. Money is determined by the Federal Reserve through its policy tools, the reserve requirement ratio, reserve interest rate, discount rate, open market operations, and we'll often talk about the real money supply, so we divide by the price level, and we have real money supply has to be equal to real money demand, which depends negatively on the interest rate and positively on GDP. As GDP goes up, you need more money to carry out transactions. So these are our two equations, the IS curve and the LM curve. We have two equations with two unknowns, the interest rate and GDP. And you recall that in the IS curve, investment depends on the interest rate. I'm using R here, little r for the interest rate. And we can solve that graphically. Here I've got little I for the interest rate, sorry about that. But we have the upward sloping LM curve and the downward sloping IS curve, and there's one point where both conditions are held. That is, there's only one set, interest rate and GDP, where investment equals savings and where money demand equals money supply. Obviously, if the location of these curves and their slopes were different, so if we had LM prime, we would have a different equilibrium interest rate and GDP. IS curve might look like that too. Depending on the slope and location, we'll have different equilibria. The slope and location of these curves change with changes in either the parameters, the sensitivity of investment to the interest rate, the sensitivity of money demand to the interest rate, sensitivity of money demand to GDP, and they change with the exogenous components. The IS curve shifts with government spending, with autonomous or exogenous consumption. The LM curve shifts when the price level changes or when money supply changes. Whatever the level of GDP that results, we'll say that if the level of GDP that results is greater than our potential level of GDP, then we're going to have inflation. And if the level of GDP that results is less than potential, then the price level is going to fall. We'll have deflation. So that's going to be our sort of dynamic long-run adjustment model in the ISLM model. And the story that we tell about that is that when GDP is above potential, by Okun's law, that means that there's low unemployment. So Oakland's law, right, tells us that there's a pretty tight relationship between GDP and unemployment. So the higher is GDP, the lower is unemployment. With low unemployment, we'd have pressure from workers, employees, to raise their wages, because bargaining power shifts to workers. And so, since wages are a major component of the cost structure for all firms in the economy, there'll be inflation pressures. There'll be pressures on firms to start raising prices. So that would be our presumption, that we would get inflation from very high levels of GDP above potential. And the opposite for low levels of GDP. We'd have pressures for deflation. Workers would start being willing to accept lower wages. And that's pretty much the bare bones. We can see it all together again now. So we have an equilibrium here with a given level of GDP, Y1, and below potential. So since Y1 is below potential, the price level will drop. And because the price level drops, the real money supply increases, the interest rate falls, the level of real investment rises, and GDP rises. And that's our adjustment mechanism, so that in the long run we're back at our potential level of GDP.